Welcome to the Business Women Australia podcast show, the podcast that brings together industry leaders to discuss the latest trends, insights and strategies. So sit back and relax. Let's get inspired by the amazing women who are shaping the future of professional women in Australia. Don't forget to like and subscribe.
So welcome to our episode of the Business Women Australia podcast show with the fabulous Jo Bradbury. I'm Lyn Hawkins. I'm the National Director and Founder of Business Women Australia, and I'm streaming to you live across the lands of the Noongar people on the west coast of Australia. You can catch up on the show on any of your favourite channels, but we love and hope that you're listening to us live or streaming across LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, and you'll find our podcasts on the Business Women Australia website. So I'm very excited for this episode, Cultivating Success Inside the 3drops Journey. Jo's a visionary director and co-owner of 3drops, and we're going to explore the remarkable story behind one of Australia's most celebrated wine and olive oil brands, certainly one of my favourite wines. Welcome to the show, Jo.
Thank you. It's really good to be here.
Yeah, it's great to have you. And we did have a crack at live streaming. So we're recording this one today. Hopefully all things will go well. And we'll be releasing it by the time everyone has a listen. It's probably a month. It'll be a month away. But you've been, for more than 25 years now, you've combined this commitment to thoughtful land stewardship, brand strategy, and premium craftsmanship. I can remember how hard it was through COVID, and now we have this geopolitical challenge as well. You really are quite resilient, and we'll dig into that today. But I know you've really enjoyed working alongside acclaimed winemaker Rob Diletti and, of course, viticulturist Ray Williams, and I'm sure you'll touch on that. And I've seen you over the years earning lots of industry awards, getting many third-party endorsements. We always get very excited when you get mentioned in Ray Jordan's books. And, of course, exceptionally loyal customer following, including many Business Women Australia members from around the nation, where they've enjoyed a lot of fabulous events that you curate for our community. So tell us a little bit about this 3drops story.
Well, I guess the story started before this 25 years, in that we decided to develop the family farm in 1998. Our first sort of conversations happened. And it really happened because my parents, who had bought the farm in 1973, were feeling they wanted to retire. They were considering selling the farming property. And so we decided just to keep a portion of that farming property. My husband and I decided to keep 250 acres and plant it. The initial plan was just olive trees. We thought we can continue our lives in Perth and we can actually have a small sort of farming operation in the Great Southern. But by 1999, after planting a couple of thousand olive trees, we decided that we would do all this sort of soil and water testing and have a look, and our investigations with that really confirmed that the property was very suitable for viticulture. So consequently, we started planning a vineyard.
And at that time, you were an occupational therapist, so that was a big shift, wasn't it, for you?
It was. I'd grown up on a farm, but I guess I had, not had huge amounts of interest in soil and water and all those sorts of things. So I had a little bit of knowledge, but not a lot. But I think as an occupational therapist, I worked mainly as a rehabilitation case manager, which means coordinating a lot of services and dealing with a lot of people. And I think those skills certainly come in handy in whatever sort of industry you work, in that you can actually achieve so much if you've actually just got good people around you.
Yeah, I've certainly seen you in action. You're an incredible project manager, and they are skills that are transferable. So this collaboration with Rob Diletti and Ray Williams, that has definitely shaped 3drops wine styles.
Yeah, so I first approached Ray in 1999 to help us plant a vineyard. And at that time, I didn't know very much at all about viticulture, wasn't even sure what grape varieties we should plant. I didn't know a lot about wine. So really I was reliant on people like Ray to provide some guidance as to how we should proceed and what we should plant. And his knowledge, his viticultural knowledge, his industry connections really, really helped very much, particularly in those early years. We made our first 2 vintages in another winery, but at that time in this other winery, I was already on my 3rd winemaker that had a bit of a staff change. And I thought if we're going to have consistency for our brand, we very much need a consistent winemaker. So Rob was a new graduate. He was just returning to the family business and very keen to make wine for others as well. So 2003 was our first vintage with Rob.
It's incredible. I've been very aware and very conscious of this incredible brand strategy that you've had very clear for 3drops. Tell us about that core brand strategy and how it's evolved over time.
Yeah, I think that sort of initial process of designing a label and deciding on a brand was quite challenging, and also that we didn't really want to make it about us. We wanted to make it about the wine and about the region and about the farm rather than sort of about us personally. So we did consult a branding company, and initially my understanding was I just needed a label, and I guess I quickly learned the difference between a label and a whole brand. And so we invested sort of fairly heavily in those early days in developing a brand rather than just developing a label. And I think the other thing that has helped us have that sort of consistency and being able to stay on story with our brand is that it's just been me leading it. I often see other wine companies and they have a new marketing manager come in, and the new marketing manager wants to make an impact and says, I don't really like that. I think I'll change this. And often it can be really difficult to keep the brand story on track and to have that sort of consistency, because as well as changing the brand, making small changes to create interest, you also still have to have that thread that continues to run through it, that gives it that brand story.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, 3drops and premium quality have been something that you've really worked hard to position the brand quite frankly in that premium quality space. Even your early distribution channels, which did really get quite challenged during COVID, didn't they?
Yes, I think Great Southern has found it more difficult to develop, and just that tyranny of distance means that it is difficult to get tourists down there. And we don't have that sort of massive following that Margaret River has, or Mornington Peninsula, those wine regions that are a bit more accessible to big cities. So I think Great Southern has found it harder to pitch their wines at the price point that Margaret River has. But I think that's changing as people really recognise that people in the Great Southern are really good at growing fruit and really good at making good wines. And so that we've definitely got the quality down in the Great Southern, that cool climate, wine growing is really coming into its own.
Absolutely. And for those of you who are zooming in, our national listeners, Great Southern is actually in the southern part of Western Australia. And for those of you who are wine buffs, you will know, no doubt, what a great region is, particularly for our beautiful cool climate Rieslings, my favourites. So you're winning a lot of awards, left, right, and centre. How important are these third-party endorsements and the wine show awards and customer feedback in building recognition for 3drops?
I think wine, like restaurants, third-party endorsements are so important, and wine competitions, wine shows are also quite important. And I think over the years, the wine show system in Australia has been very, very good, and it has gradually enabled the continual improvement in quality by putting your product up against your peers and getting feedback. You go back to the winemaker, you go back to the vineyard, and you look at, okay, this is the style that seems to do really well. This is what we want to achieve. So I think wine shows are incredibly important. I do find in international markets, what James Halliday's Wine Companion thinks of your wines, and if you've got 93 points or 95 points, those sorts of things become very important for export, because those international markets don't have the opportunity to come to the vineyard necessarily and see what we're doing. And often when you do an initial submission, you're really just relying on your tasting notes and that sort of third-party endorsement to get up to the next stage of sending samples or having your wine selected for international customers.
Yes, look, it's amazing when you go through those awards and the ratings and see, what else is new. Quite often people get into ruts. It's lovely to see what the new varieties are. It is similar to any fashion. There's lots of trends that come and go over the years too. But tell us about your farming philosophy in the Great Southern. Our listeners will be very interested in what your sort of environmental practices are that are central to your vineyards and your olive groves.
Yes, so when we initially planted the vineyard, I mentioned that we had sort of quite extensive water surveys done. And on our farming property, we have an 8-hectare wetland. And it's home to sort of long-necked turtles, the kangaroos live around there. There's a lot of wildlife in and around there, quite a few snakes and lizards, obviously, and lots of bird life. So it's an incredible environment. And during COVID, I really noticed how wonderful it was to be able to wander around, a wetland like that and, see nobody and lovely to have that isolation. But maintaining the integrity of that wetland has been incredibly important. And the initial water surveys suggested that we did harvest water from this wetland because of the way the land had been cleared post-Second World War, when the land releases were given out to ex-servicemen. The theory that they gave us was that sort of wetland was actually collecting too much runoff. So we agreed what was a sensible runoff and started pumping from just a corner of it into a holding dam. And we continue to do that. We continue to monitor salt levels in it. And it's great to see that the salt levels are still, very well maintained. We are also currently working with the Wilson Inlet Catchment Group to do a revegetation project at our Patterson vineyard. And the Patterson vineyard we purchased in 2006, but it was planted in 1982. And it has a stream running through it. There's been a bit of problems with salinity through the middle of that, as well as some erosion. So we've currently got an Indigenous group helping with putting in a new stock crossing and managing the water flow. And I think they'll also be involved in the replanting project, which is been really great to have this advice from Wilson Catchment and this enthusiastic group of people who are assisting with the revegetation. We try to do things like run sheep through the vineyard once harvest is complete. It's the best way to sort of manage the winter pasture between the vines, and obviously the sheep manure is perfect for the vineyard. And I guess our philosophy very much in terms of spraying and fertigation is based on doing enough so that we can maintain our vineyard and meet the fruit requirements that we need, but be very sensitive to the timing of sprays if required. If there's a natural alternative, we'll always choose that. And I guess that's where Ray's experience comes in, and his knowledge of vineyard management.
And what about climate change? I mean, how's that impacting on the Great Southern and on particularly on your wine production?
One of the things I've really noticed is the movement of seasons. That at the moment it's April and we've got this almost Indian summer at the moment. We've only had one big heavy rain, which was secondary to the recent tropical cyclone. So I've noticed that the break of the season in general becomes later, and then our spring and summer has started later. So we really noticed that with grape growing. In terms of drying, the dryness and the water, we're very fortunate to be in a region where we have adequate water. So most seasons we 2/3 fill our dams, and probably every 6 or 7 years we are able to fully fill our dam, and with 40,000 cubic metres. We always approach our irrigation programs with, even if our dam was full that year, that we are still going to be very careful with water, as anyone growing up on an Australian farm would know. We have also a bore, which we use on occasion. Great Southern's really fortunate in that it's only 400 kilometres south from Perth, but the climate's quite different, and even though we do obviously get those 38-degree days on occasion, it's often only 1 or 2 days consecutively, and we also get the cooler nights, so it's not unusual to have a 15 or 16-degree night even in summer. So I feel that, like Tasmania, like perhaps Mornington Peninsula, Great Southern is very blessed to be in this very cool, slightly wetter part of the state. Our vineyards are only, as the crow flies, about 40 kilometres inland from Albany on the south coast.
Yeah, it's certainly a part of the state that a lot of people are discovering and moving to for these reasons, I think. Look, we've touched a little bit on fashions and wine styles and trends. What are you seeing at the moment that's emerging, and how does 3drops respond to these changes in consumer tastes?
I think that, over the sort of 25 years that we've been involved with wine, there's certainly been a lot of fashion changes. And changes happen in terms of variety, but also in terms of style. I always think Chardonnay is a good example of how styles have changed, and how, when I first started in the wine industry, that Chardonnay was all about really big, rich, oaky oak, French oak. We'd put, 75% of the wine in oak, and you would have to have ripe fruit so you could have that balance between the oak and the fruit. And then everyone started harvesting earlier, using oak a lot more subtly, and everything sort of became a bit leaner, a bit more like a Chablis style. And I think currently it's probably sits somewhere in between there. You have enough oak that, you know, for people that love Chardonnay, but you also, you know, have fruit that's not so lean and austere. So sometimes trying to follow fashion can be really challenging. With Chardonnay, by the time you've, you know, had it in oak for 10 months and then you release it, if you were always trying to follow fashion, you'd often be missing the boat. So instead, for things like Chardonnay, we really look at, what works really well for our fruit, what works well for the Great Southern style. And our Chardonnay only has about 25% new oak, and the balance goes in to 1 and 2 year old barrels. But overall, you know, with red wine as well, you're seeing very much people are wanting finer, elegant, not so heavy, not such big alcohols, and not such heavy oak. And then I think the other thing that's changed hugely is people's willingness to try different varieties. We started making our Cabernets in 2001, and at that time I was told by several of our distributors that people didn't want something that was a blend of Cabernet Sauvignon and Cabernet Franc. They didn't know what Cabernet Franc was, so therefore it was too hard to sell it to them. Whereas now that's become something that makes that wine interesting and appealing and different for customers.
So it's really interesting hearing, because that's a very creative input into the decision making that you've got. And how do you balance that creativity with staying true to your 3drops identity? Is that tricky?
Do we make wines that we don't believe in or that don't represent us? I don't think we do. I think for instance, we planted some Nebbiolo and we have made it into a rosé since 2016. And it works really well as a rosé, and there was so much pressure. Oh, look, could you make a Nebbiolo as a red wine? Which we did. And the people that tried it really liked it. But it's not as easy a style to sell as 100% Nebbiolo. You know, it goes very slowly on a wine list. It ticks through quite slowly in a liquor store, even though people like the sound of it.
So, Jo, what have been the biggest challenges in maintaining profitability in the wine industry today?
I think, like any sort of agricultural business, you are reliant on the weather. And so being small producers, with just two vineyards, both in that sort of Mount Barker, Great Southern area, if we don't get great weather, it's more challenging to make great wines. So there are times when we just don't make a particular wine, say we don't make a Cabernet because the rain came in, those sorts of things. So that can be a challenge, but really lucky to have the experience of Ray in the vineyard, who will say, look, it's coming in, the weather's coming in tonight, we're going to pull it in this morning. And Rob in the winery saying, look, I know that I can make good wine from this. So I guess over time I've become more resilient to those challenges and know that you don't actually count on what you're making until it's all in the winery. I mean, obviously COVID was quite a challenge for us. It was a time when, you know, restaurants and wine bars, our main customers, were closed. At the same time, the tariffs for wine went on in China, which was an important market for us. So everything was happening at the same time. I think during that time, my online sales improved, and I really tried to work hard on that. And also retail and distributing wines in the chains helped very much during that period. And I guess having enough of a buffer as we went into COVID to sustain us during that period. I think at the moment, with all the geopolitical things happening in the world affecting fuel in Australia, that will, if it continues, have quite an impact on us. Fortunately, we are at the end of our cycle. We've just completed vintage 2026. So it goes into downtime in the vineyard. We have our staff are on holidays, and then pruning happens, which is mainly hand done. So we don't have huge diesel requirements at the moment, but everybody's labour costs go up as a result of that. Labour costs for the last few years and the availability of labour have certainly been challenges for us.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's so many things that are outside your control, as producers. It's just extraordinary. But so if we come back to, thinking about your customers, how do you keep that broad and loyal customer base while maintaining that premium positioning for your brand? I remember vividly, how reluctant you once were to have your label in retail chains, and that was a big shift for you, and a good shift, particularly, with regard to what happened in COVID.
Yeah, so that was in relation to that actually happened during COVID, that we decided, given that we were really focusing on wine bars and thinking that if you were selling to wine bars and restaurants, that you didn't have a place in the chains. And when I actually looked at that more closely, I realised that most brands were in the chains, and at that time the chains were buying up a lot of regional stores, from Broome to Albany to Denmark to Esperance, and so decided that we would range in the chains, and have actually been reasonably happy with how we can sort of protect our price point in the chains.
I remember being very happy about that from my own personal perspective, Jo. Of course, this big celebration, 25 years this year. What a wonderful achievement. Congratulations on that.
Thank you. It's been a really wonderful journey, and I've had amazing opportunities as a result. We have exported to many countries now, and I've hosted dinners in China, in South Korea. I've hosted tastings in Singapore and Hong Kong. I've exported to Canada, the UK. I've currently got some tenders in some wines which I've submitted for tenders in Scandinavia, which will be, if successful, would be a new market for us.
Oh, I love it. And a great excuse to travel to Scandinavia. How extraordinary. So, and what else is next for 3drops, and what are you most excited about for the future?
One of the exciting things that we've just done is just released a new sparkling, which we look forward to sharing at a BWA event soon in Perth. This is a Blanc de Blanc, so a Chardonnay based sparkling wine. I think in the wine industry, it's very much about continuing to improve what you do. And there's not a time when you think I've made it or this is all perfect. It's always aspiring to make the best wine possible and to make wines that people love to drink, but also that the critics like to try as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I noticed on your socials you've just launched a wine club.
Yes, and a new website. So that's been a bit of a process, but a really interesting journey. And yeah, we do hope people sign up to our wine club and receive some regular 3drops deliveries. I love hearing from customers. I love people sending me photos. I was just in a Melbourne restaurant and I tried your wine, or I just had this for a picnic, or someone gifted this to me. I love hearing those stories.
Oh, that's fantastic. So thank you so much, Jo. You know, we're big fans of 3drops wine and the olive oils, which we didn't get a chance to talk about today, but also wonderful olive oils from 3drops and the Great Southern. It just gorgeous, beautiful fruit comes out of that region. And then that just translates to wonderful quality products. So thanks for sharing your story of leadership. It's a story of innovation and resilience. And I love hearing a behind the scenes look at what makes an exceptional brand like yours, Jo. So well done to you and John and the family and the team all behind 3drops. Your varieties include Riesling, Sauvignon Blanc, Chardonnay, Pinot Noir, Merlot, the Cabernets, Shiraz, and the launch of the 2024 Blanc de Blanc Sparkling, which we're looking forward to at the Perth Sparkling Wine Dinner. I'm pretty sure that's sold out. There's already a wait list for that, as always, for our 3drops events. But we are planning some more events. Jo is cornering me for some fantastic Women of Inspiration dinner event and an end of year event. She's just extraordinary the way she comes and curates these wonderful ideas and experiences where we can enjoy connecting with each other and enjoying the 3drops brands in our program. So thank you so much for everything you bring to Businesswomen Australia. We really appreciate you, Jo.
Thank you. And I love sharing our wines with your members.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you're keen to join our national community of leading entrepreneurial, executive and professional women, we'd love to have you. We are in all the capital cities of interest, and if we're not in the place where you're at, we'd love for you to help build a chapter with us. If you check out our events calendar on the website, come and see what you'd like to dip your toe in if you haven't already been to something. We'd love to have you. And we have our leadership retreats this year, 2 of them, one at Mount Lofty Estate in South Australia on the 20th to the 23rd of July. Mention this podcast and I'll give you a special offer. We're finalising our numbers on the 19th. So please get in and let me know if you're keen to join us to that one. And Blue Karma, Ubud, Bali will be our October retreat for leaders on the 21st to the 25th of October, and we have plenty of places available for that. It is a small group, but we love these experiences for some time out and some building of our own understanding of our leadership styles and what's important to us going through over the next few years. So that is us. We would love to hear more from you. If you've got ideas for topics or events, please reach out and get involved in co-creating and collaborating with Businesswomen Australia. And we'll have you back on the show. I think the recording is a great idea for us, Jo.
Yes.
Clearly in Mandurah, I'm now regional, so I think my regional internet connection is not quite as strong as it was when I was in the centre of Perth. But I'm very grateful to have you on the show and have you back again another day.
Oh, thanks, Lyn. It was a pleasure. Thank you.
You have been listening to the Businesswomen Australia podcast show. We hope you've enjoyed today's episode and gained some valuable insights to empower you on your journey. Don't forget to comment, like and subscribe to stay updated in our latest episodes. And if you're not already a member of Businesswomen Australia, what are you waiting for? Head to our website today and join so that you can connect with a thriving community of inspiring women across Australia. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll catch you in the next episode.